Hello and welcome to the Aussie Football Passport, your one-stop pod for updates on your favourite Aussie men and women footballers who are playing their club careers abroad. I'm your host Alex, and this week's episode has it all. The Matildas' progress in the Asian Cup, a potential Socceroo changing his allegiance, the Matildas' hopefuls that didn't make the Asian Cup squad returning to club action, and our men scoring some worldies, and then everything in between. Also, a quick note that I'm recording this episode on the night of the Matildas semi-final. So I'll update you on that result later on and keep your eyes peeled for maybe a potential bonus episode. Anyway, let's get on with it with the headlines. And let's start with the transfer rumour mill. We have a transfer rumour already and we're only in March. Gotta love football, don't you? It's Newcastle Jets striker Lachlan Rose, who is reportedly set to join Scottish outfit Dundee United from next season. According to the Daily Record and the Courier, United will finalise a pre-contract with Rose this week, with terms agreed on a 2-year deal. It is reward for a productive season for the striker, leading the line for the high-flying Jets with 8 goals so far this season, and he'll be looking to cap this season at the Jets with not only the Golden Boot, but the A-League Premiership, the toilet seat, as it's lovingly known. Now, let's get to some other headlines. As I alluded to in the intro, let's start with the shock news of Adrian Segecic changing his nationality on the FIFA International database from Australia to Croatia. He was quoted on the Croatian Football Federation's website as saying, "It wasn't easy to make this decision because I grew up in Australia, which I represented at youth levels. So I would like to express my gratitude to the coaches and teammates with whom I shared the dressing room." Football Australia and Socceroos staff have been blindsided by this decision. It was only a matter of months ago when he did an interview with Simon Hill that he stated his desire to wear the green and gold after being called into the Socceroos camp during the September international window. Of course, there is still a very slim chance that Segecic can backflip and choose to represent Australia, as he would have to be capped in a competitive senior men's game for Croatia to lock him in with the nation. This does look like a very slim chance now as that database change has happened. And for the time being, I'll stop covering Adrian on the pod. We wish Adrian all the best. And I guess this does open up a bit of a debate about those dual national players. It's fair to say over the years, Australia have, well, in more recent times anyway, have won the battle. You think of the Scottish cohort, particularly Martin Boyle and Harry Souttar, that chose to represent Australia. Of course, there's been some high-profile ones that have gone the other way, particularly with Josip Simonic choosing to represent Croatia. But for every Josip Simonic, there's a Mark Viduka who does choose to represent Australia. You have to respect the player's decision at the end of the day and who they feel most loyal to or who they feel they will get a better opportunity with. So Adrian clearly feels that is with Croatia. And as I said before, I wish him all the best in the Croatian system. Now, under-20s coach Trevor Morgan has named a 23-player squad for 2 matches against China later this month. And it's headlined by the selection of Manchester United fullback James Overy. He's already played in the senior team, the Socceroos that is, and no doubt would have been a good chance considering the season-ending injury to Lewis Miller. However, he's been selected in the under-20 side. So that might allude to Tony Popovic assessing options elsewhere, you'd imagine. But getting back to the under-20 side, the new faces in that side are midfielder Alex Bolton, who recently joined Swedish club AIK from Perth Glory, Sampdoria left-back Delano Cecchi, Leeds United goalkeeper Robbie Cook, Glory midfielder Giovanni Di Abreu, and Newcastle Jets star Will Dobson. Another name of note is Marcus Neal, the son of Socceroos great Lucas. He's been called into the under-20 side despite being just 17 years old. He's been killing it in front of goal for Sunderland's youth sides, and that's why he's been selected here, you'd imagine. Also of note is the selection of Monza central midfielder Danilo Trefeletti, who has previously been capped by Australia at under 17 level, but interestingly also by Italy at under 16 level. So going back to that dual national debate that I just talked about with Adrian Segecic, there's another prime example there. Anyway, let's get on to what I think a fair chunk of the listeners want to hear. It's how the Matildas got on with their game against North Korea in the quarterfinal. Well, I can tell you, if you've been under a rock recently, that the Matildas defeated North Korea 2-1 to book their place in the semi-final of the Asian Cup. The result also means that the Matildas have directly qualified for next year's FIFA Women's World Cup, which will be held in Brazil. So congratulations for the Matildas, and fair to say they've got the pass mark for the tournament. The pressure is off, but let's see if they can knock over the semi-final next. But let's get back to the quarterfinal game against North Korea, because Joe Montemurro made 2 changes to the side that drew 3-3 with Korea Republic in that final group game. Caitlin Torpey replaced the injured Steph Catley at left back, whilst Emily Van Egmond started in midfield in place of Claire Wheeler. Alana Kennedy scored in the first half before Sam Kerr, the hometown hero in this one, doubled the lead in the second half. North Korea was the more pleasing on the eye. I think you'll probably agree with me if you caught the game. They had slick passing moves and they were high pressing without the ball, which resulted in a number of turnovers and ultimately in them dominating possession in this one. To be precise, they had 62% of possession, which goes against Joe Montemurro ball, where he likes to dominate, well, he likes his sides to dominate the ball. But in this case, North Korea, well, they also had more shots than the Matildas. They had 21-4 and 10 shots on target to 2. But in the end, the Matildas were the ones that came out with the victory 2-1. Again, the structureless midfield provided both benefits. You can see Alana Kennedy's goal as a perfect example of that. And then the negatives, because North Korea's attacks just seemed to slice straight through the midfield of the Matildas. So it'll leave Coach Montemurro with something to think about before the next game as to whether he changes this or not, whether he provides a little bit more rigidity there, a little bit more structure, or whether he continues down the same path. No doubt he will have a bit of a tactical battle on his hands with the Ante Milicic coached China. Of course, Ante Milicic, a former Matildas coach himself and good friends with Joe Montemurro. So no doubt it will be a very interesting tactical matchup between the 2 sides in the semi-final. Now let's hear the thoughts of Joe Montemurro and Sam Kerr on the game against North Korea.
How do you feel for that?
How do I feel?
Qualifying for the World Cup.
Yeah, look, I mean, that was the biggest thing. I've never been to Brazil, so I'm really looking forward to it. We had to do a job tonight, so against an excellent team, and we move forward.
How about you, Sam?
You too.
Yeah, just happy to win. Really good team performance, I thought. Everyone really dug deep, and I think that type of performance as a team can give us a lot of confidence to go forward. So really happy with not only the win, but how we stuck in and worked together.
Hi, Joe. I guess you spoke a lot after the South Korea game about tournament football and every game the job being to improve. Do you think that's what we saw tonight? And how do you compare, I guess, the grit the team showed at the end of that game compared to South Korea?
Look, let's be frank and honest here. I mean, obviously, winning football games like that, it usually sort of happens in tournaments. I mean, I've done it a few times like that in Champions League. I think there was a game against Chelsea we went and got a draw. Were you playing?
Sure.
With Juventus?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got a draw. I mean, they had 450 million shots and we had 1. That's tournament football. We knew that they were they're a great side. For me, and I'm probably extending. They're the best team in the tournament. They really are. They're a great side. But they have their reasons for the way they play, and it's very difficult and it's very unpredictable. So we just had to be methodical And where we won the game, I think, were the little bits in between as we were losing the ball or as we were winning the ball to keep our shape and keep our organisation. Yeah, we didn't create much. We had to resist a lot. But again, it's the way, it's the way you beat these teams. You have to manage the game in a certain way, and fortunate enough for us, we did it.
Thanks to Football Australia and the AFC for that audio. Now, let's go around the grounds at the Asian Cup to bring you up to speed on all the results that have happened in the last week. So, in the remaining match day 3 group games, India lost 3-1 to Taiwan, which saw Taiwan progress to the quarterfinals. Japan then comfortably defeated Vietnam 4-0. This set up some interesting quarterfinal fixtures, to say the least. In particular, there was a game between China and Taiwan in which China won 2-0 in extra time in the first game on Saturday. South Korea then demolished Uzbekistan 6-0 in the evening game on Saturday. And then on Sunday afternoon, Japan dismantled the Philippines with a 7-0 win. Just to note again that all of the semi-finalists have secured direct qualification into next year's World Cup, whilst the other 4 teams go into playoffs for the remaining 2 spots. So that means that China, South Korea, and Japan will join the Matildas with that direct qualification to the World Cup, whilst Uzbekistan will play the Philippines and Taiwan will play North Korea to decide who goes through to the FIFA Women's World Cup next year. Both of those games will be held on the Gold Coast as well. So get down if you're available. They should be 2 very interesting games. In terms of the semi-finals, as I've noted already, or as you could probably tell from what I have just spoken about, Australia will play China in Perth, while Japan and South Korea will play each other in Sydney to determine the finalists. Come on, the Matildas. All right, now to the least favourite sub-segment of the Aussie Football Passport. It is injury news. And let's start with some positive news for once, because Joe Montemuro has confirmed that Hayley Raso and Steph Catley will be available for the semi-final against China after passing their concussion tests. In fantastic news for the Matildas. Both players, no doubt, will come straight into that side for the game against China. Derby County head coach John Eustace confirmed that Callum Elder will be sidelined for up to 6 weeks after suffering with a knee injury across recent matches. He also sustained a toe injury in last month's fixture away at Hull City. So he's getting both of those fixed up, and hopefully he will be back after the international break, which is in a couple of weeks' time. So that's why he's been missing from Derby County side in recent matches. Now, Motherwell have confirmed that fullback Johnny Katrumbis will continue to be out for a further few weeks with a calf injury, explaining his absence in recent weeks from that Motherwell side. All right, that is it for the headlines. Let's move on to the weekly wrap in just a second. All right, let's start with the weekly wrap and our ladies who were unfortunate to make the Matildas side. Yes, I'm still going to keep you updated on those players as they return to club action after the FIFA international window ended. Now, to start with in the USA with Courtney Vine, who played 29 minutes as a second half substitute in North Carolina Courage's 2-1 win over Racing Louisville. Now to Mexico, where Emily Gilnick played 30 minutes for Monterrey, coming on as a second half substitute in her side's 2-0 win over Mazatlan FC. Now to France, where Clara Uwaru played 18 minutes for Fleury in their 2-0 loss to Nantes. Now to Germany, where Leia Varley started and played the full game for Nuremberg in their 2-1 loss to Freiburg. And rounding out our ladies' action in Italy with our Aussie pair at Sassuolo. Unfortunately, they went down 3-0 to Inter Milan. Jacinta Galabadaracci came on as a second half substitute, specifically in the 64th minute, whilst fellow Aussie Jessica Nash did the same, however, in the 68th minute. Now, let's check in on our men in the championship. Riley McGree played 75 minutes for Middlesbrough in a 1-0 loss to Charlton in midweek action. At the weekend, he backed up, playing 60 minutes for Middlesbrough in a 1-1 draw with Bristol City. That makes it 4 games without a win for Borough and could affect their automatic promotion hopes. Nestori Irankunda played 84 minutes for Watford in a 1-1 draw with Sheffield Wednesday. At the weekend, he came on in the 64th minute with his side 2-0 down to Stoke City and scored an absolutely stunning goal for his side. However, it was not enough to spark a comeback as they lost 3-1 in the end. Cameron Burgess played a full game for Swansea City in their 2-1 win over Portsmouth, who had Hayden Matthews on the bench. He then played another full game for Swansea City in a 2-0 loss to Wrexham at the weekend in a bit of a Welsh derby there. Daniel Benny came on in stoppage time, getting a solitary minute of game time in QPR's 3-1 win over Leicester City. Keely Adamson was on the bench for QPR, but did not get any minutes. Now down to League One, where Joe Gauci started and played the whole game in goal for Port Vale in a 2-0 loss to Bradford City in midweek action. He then started and played the whole game for Port Vale, keeping a clean sheet in a 0-0 draw with Huddersfield Town. Rafael Borges Rodriguez came off the bench in the 83rd minute in a 3-0 loss to Plymouth Argyle. However, on the winning side, there was Caleb Watts, who started, played 85 minutes and scored one of the goals. Now going back to Rafael Borges Rodriguez, who started and played a full game for Wigan Athletic in their 2-0 win over Bradford City at the weekend. Caleb Watts repeated the trick with another goal for Plymouth Argyle in their 2-2 draw with Reading this time around at the weekend. Heading north of the border to Scotland, where Oscar Priestman was a second-half substitute, getting 13 minutes in Motherwell's 3-1 loss to Celtic. Martin Boyle replaced Jack Iredale in the 62nd minute, whilst Socceroo hopeful Ante Suto was substituted at the same time for Hibs in their 0-0 draw with Livingston. Ryan McGowan remained on the bench for Livingston in that match and did not get any minutes. Ashley Maynard-Brewer started and played the whole game for Dundee United in their 2-2 draw with Dundee in the derby there. His Aussie teammates were second-half substitutes, with Zach Sapsford getting 19 minutes and Ryan Strain getting 8 minutes. Now to Italy, where Alessandro Circati started and played a full game for Parma in their 4-1 loss to Torino. In Germany, Jackson Irvine started and played a full game, whilst Connor Metcalf came off the bench in the 89th minute for St. Pauli in their 2-0 loss to Borussia Mönchengladbach. To Spain, where Matt Ryan started and played the full game in goal for Levante in a 1-1 draw with Rayo Vallecano. He made 3 saves in the match, as his side are 5 points from safety in La Liga. To Croatia, where Fran Karacic started and played the whole game for NK Osijek in their 0-0 draw with HNK Gorica. Anthony Kalic came off the bench in the 90th minute for Hajduk Split in their 2-1 win over NK Lokomotiva. Now to the Netherlands, where Jordan Boss started and played a full game for Feyenoord as they defeated Excelsior Rotterdam 2-1. Boss provided his 8th assist of the season in the victory, continuing his good form of late. Max Ballard started and played a full game for NAC Breda in a 6-0 loss to Go Ahead Eagles. Arden Rustic started and played the full game for Heracles Alamello in a 4-0 loss to AZ Alkmaar. His Aussie teammate Reece Bozanovsky started but was substituted at halftime in that one. Now to Austria, where Jacob Italiano played 47 minutes for Grazer AK in their 2-0 win over Wolfsberger AC. In Denmark, Paul Itzo started and played a full game in goal whilst keeping a clean sheet for Randers FC in their 3-0 win over FC Frederica. Musa Toure was not in the matchday squad. Now to Norway, where Gianni Stensner started and played 47 minutes for Viking in their 2-1 loss to Hamar Kamatarana. It was an eventful match for Gianni, scoring a goal, receiving a yellow card, and then being substituted at halftime. Gee whiz, hopefully it gets better for Gianni after that one. Now to Poland, where a particular striker reminded Tony Popovic of his skill set. It's Danny Juric, who played the full game and scored the winner for his side, Wisła Plock, in their 2-1 win over Cracovia. Now to Cyprus, where Miloš Degenek came on as a second-half substitute in the 77th minute for Apoel in their 2-1 win over Aris Limassol FC. Now to Czechia, where Garon Quol started and played 47 minutes for Sparta Prague in their 2-1 loss to AZ Alkmaar in the first leg of his side's Europa Conference League round of 16 match. The return leg is to be held next week. He then came on in the 87th minute for Sparta Prague in their 5-2 win over FC Slovako in Czech League action at the weekend. Now to Northern America, specifically the USA. Patrick Yazbek started and played the full game for Nashville in a 0-0 draw with Inter Miami in midweek CONCACAF Champions Cup action. At the weekend, he came off the bench in the 62nd minute for Nashville in their 1-0 win over Columbus Crew in MLS League action. Kai Rolls started and played a full game for DC United in a 2-1 win over Chicago Fire. Kai Truan and Aidan O'Neill both played full games for New York City FC in their 3-1 win over Colorado Rapids. For the Rapids, Lucas Harrington started and played the full game. Archie Goodwin played 9 minutes as a late second-half substitute in Charlotte's 0-0 draw with Inter Miami. Now, rounding out our men's weekly wrap in Japan, Tete Yengi started and played 68 minutes, scoring his first goal in the J-League to lead his Makita Zelvia side to a 1-0 win over Kashiwa Reysol. Finally, Jason Guerrier started and played a full game for Albrecht Niigata as they drew 0-0 with Nara Club. The game went to penalties where Guerrier's side won 4-2. All right, that is it for the weekly wrap. Next up, Players of the Week, and I'll wrap this week's episode. All right, Players of the Week time, and our Women's Player of the Week. Well, it's basically a copy and paste job from last week's show. I'll be completely honest with you. It's Alana Kennedy. She continued a hot streak in the front of goal, this time opening the scoring for the Matildas in their quarterfinal encounter with North Korea, and laid the foundations for that victory. I think it's pretty fair to say. It's hard to believe, but she is now a red-hot chance of winning the Golden Boot at this tournament. Really, really, incredible stuff. And it's great to see from Alana. As I mentioned in last week's episode, her role in the side was being really questioned, and she's not only come out and played really well, but she's scored a lot of goals, which is definitely not in her role description, let's say. Her fluid role in midfield, I guess, has allowed her to do this and take advantage of the space that the attackers in front of her have provided, and hasn't she done so? Long may it continue, I say. Now to our men's player of the week. It is none other than Alex Robertson, who, well, he just snuck in front of Nestori Irankunda for this award this week. He was a goal scorer, and let me try and do this justice with words. He exchanged a 1-2 with Ryan Wintle on the edge of the box before curling in an unstoppable effort into the top right corner of the goal, which is what won him the award over Nestori. In that goal-scoring performance, he played 79 minutes for his side, Cardiff City, in their 4-0 win over Exeter City on the weekend. In midweek, he played 69 minutes for Cardiff City in their 1-1 draw with Barnsley, which helps push them closer to automatic promotion to the championship. All right, well, that is it for another week of the Aussie Football Passport. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment on this episode or any other ones that you've listened to over the time. It will help the podcast get into as many ears as possible, and I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. By the time the next episode is out, the Asian Cup will have wrapped up. So keep your eye out, as I said at the top of the show, for some additional content that will come your way. All right. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Goodbye for now.